You're not tired because your life is too full. You're tired because your life is too empty of you, because you keep saying yes when every part of your being aches with no. You keep carrying what was never yours, smiling while your soul whispers, please stop disappearing. They told you that goodness meant sacrifice, that love meant obedience, that being worthy meant being agreeable. And somewhere along the way you believed it, but what if they were wrong? What if the thing you've been calling selfish, setting boundaries, walking away, choosing your truth, was actually sacred? Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist, called the journey of becoming who you are individuation, not a self-help slogan, a spiritual imperative. The path of peeling away every false layer until only the truth remains. And he warned us, this path begins not with a yes, but with a no, a sacred no. A refusal to keep betraying yourself just to be liked. A quiet, trembling stand against a world that's trained you to smile while bleeding. But here's the trap, that no, even when it's honest, even when it's necessary, doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels like guilt. Not the kind that comes from doing harm. Jung called it tragic guilt, the sorrow that rises when you stop living for other people's approval. The ache of choosing soul over survival pattern. The grief that comes when the performance ends and your real self, unpolished and imperfect, steps into the light. You feel it when you cancel the plan. When you don't return the text. When you draw a line and don't explain why. And even though your body sighs in relief, your mind floods with panic. What if they think I'm selfish? What if they stop loving me? Who am I without this role? That panic isn't truth. It's the echo of old conditioning breaking apart, because you were never meant to live in service to everyone else's comfort. You were meant to live in alignment with your own center. That doesn't mean becoming hard or unkind. It means becoming whole. And the first step toward wholeness isn't glory, it's grief. Grief for the years you gave away to keep the peace. Grief for the joy you postponed in the name of being agreeable. Grief for the identity you wore like armor, one that won applause but never peace. That grief is not weakness, it's the threshold. And when you cross it, trembling but honest, you begin to understand something Jung spent his life trying to teach. Guilt is not always proof you've done something wrong. Sometimes it's proof that you've finally done something real. So let the guilt rise, let the conditioning shake, let the discomfort come. Because it means the sacred no is working. It means your life is finally becoming yours. There's a moment you know too well. Someone asks you for something, your time, your energy, your presence. And even though you're already stretched thin, even though a voice inside says no, you smile and say yes. Then comes the familiar ache, tight in your chest, hollow in your gut. That ache isn't resentment, it's erasure. It's what happens when your truth gets smothered by your persona. Carl Jung called it just that, the persona. The mask we wear to survive the world, to be liked, to be accepted. It's not a lie, it's a strategy, a role crafted over years of learning who we had to be to stay safe, wanted and approved of. Maybe your mask is the good one, the reliable one, the strong one, the peacemaker. And it worked. You were praised for it, rewarded. You became everyone's go-to, everyone's rock. But somewhere along the line you stopped being a person and started being a utility. The mask began to crack the skin beneath it. You say yes while your body screams no. You give while your soul runs dry. You smile while your real self watches quietly from the shadows, waiting for permission to come home, but that permission never comes. Because the world isn't built to give it to you. You must reclaim it. But here's the truth no one tells you. Reclaiming your no will feel like loss before it feels like liberation. Loss of identity, loss of approval. Loss of that comforting sense that at least you're being useful. This is the collapse no one talks about. You wake up one morning and realize you've built a life that everyone else loves, and you don't recognize yourself in it. You cancel the plans and sit in silence, and it hits you. You don't know what you want. You've spent so long meeting other people's needs, you forgot how to hear your own. And that is the beginning, not a failure, of freedom. Because the part of you that still feels selfish for saying no, the part that cringes when you disappoint someone, that's the part that's been starved for oxygen. That's the part that carries your shadow, not the villain, not the monster, but the truth you weren't allowed to express. Anger, desire, limits, needs. All the things you were taught to swallow in the name of being good. But goodness isn't self-erasure, and peace that costs your authenticity isn't peace. It's performance, so how do you begin? You begin by listening to the ache. You begin by honoring the whisper that says, I can't do this anymore. You begin by letting the smile drop, not because you're bitter, but because you're done pretending. Done being agreeable at the cost of being real. Done nodding while your boundaries erode. And when the old guilt rises, because it will, breathe. Remind yourself this is not proof that you've failed, it's proof that you're finally healing. And when the guilt fades, what takes its place? Not perfection, not applause, but presence. And a voice, yours, quiet and grounded, that finally says, I matter too. I don't have to disappear to be loved. My no is enough. And for the first time in a long time, you don't just believe it, you feel it. And the world slowly begins to meet the real you. Not the one they trained you to be, but the one you came here to become. You don't lose yourself all at once. You lose yourself in small, polite steps, the half smile when you want to decline, the soft maybe when your body already knows it's a no, the familiar line, it's fine, I'll handle it, when it's not, and you can't, and you shouldn't have to. And over time, those small betrayals add up to something vast, a hollowing. Carl Jung taught that the path to becoming who you truly are, the process of individuation, demands one thing before all else: differentiation. The courage to step away from the version of you that was created to be approved of. That courage begins with a single word, no. But this no isn't a slammed door or a snapped reply, it's sacred. It's the moment you stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. The moment you stop proving your goodness by erasing your needs. The sacred no is not rebellion, it's restoration. It's not the fire that burns bridges, it's the light that finally illuminates your edges. But here's the truth no one prepared you for. Your sacred no will not feel noble at first. It will feel like failure. You'll say no and silence will follow, the kind of silence that rings like guilt. You'll imagine the judgment in their eyes, the disappointment in their voice. You'll check your phone and feel the absence of a reply, and that absence will ache like rejection. Because so many of your relationships were built on your yes. So many people learn to love your compliance. And when that changes, when you stop overextending, overgiving, overexplaining, they might leave. Let them. That isn't cruelty, it's clarity. A sacred no is not just about protecting your time or your peace, it's about protecting your becoming. Saying no is how the real you begins to breathe. It's how your inner life stops being a performance and starts being a home. But there's a moment, for almost everyone, where this choice cracks you open, where you sit in the quiet aftermath of your first real no and feel more alone than ever. Maybe you've already had that moment. You said no to the dinner, no to the extra project, no to the friend who never listens but always takes. You turned your phone face down. You sat in silence, and then came the voice. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have just said yes. Maybe it's easier to go back. That voice is not your truth. That voice is your conditioning. And it will say anything to keep you inside the cage you've outgrown. But if you listen just beneath it, another voice is rising. It's quieter, steadier. It says, I'm proud of you. We don't abandon ourselves anymore. This is the sound of becoming real. Because every time you honor your limit, without apology, without performance, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Boundaries are not selfish. They are declarations of self-respect. They are how your nervous system learns that love doesn't require self-erasure. And every sacred no, spoken with clarity and grace, becomes a promise. I will not disappear to be loved. I will not betray myself to keep peace. I will not perform tenderness at the expense of truth. This is not the easy path, but it is the honest one. And on this path, the cost of saying yes to others at the expense of yourself becomes far too high. You learn that it's not your job to manage how others perceive your boundaries. Your job is to honor them. And the more you do, the more you begin to understand. Saying no is not rejection, it's revelation. It's the moment you stop asking for permission to be whole and start living like you already are. Some truths are too ancient for psychology to name. They live in the bones of stories, older than science, deeper than explanation. And in these stories, saying no is not just a boundary, it's a threshold. There is a myth of a bird, the phoenix, spoken of in Egyptian, Greek, Persian traditions. She lives for hundreds of years, and when her time comes, she does not wither. She builds a pyre, she climbs inside it, and she burns. Not because she's broken, but because rebirth demands a letting go that the world will never give you permission for. You may not wear feathers, but you felt this fire. That burning in your chest when you know something has ended, an identity, a relationship, a season of your life, but the world around you still asks you to keep going, keep pretending. You don't need to go up in flames, but you do need to stop waiting for approval to change. Because the sacred no is the match, not to destroy your life, but to destroy the life that keeps you small. There's another story told by Hans Christian Andersen of a girl who slips on a pair of red shoes. At first they sparkle, they dance, they make her feel seen. But soon they won't stop. She dances through sorrow, through suffering, through solitude. She begs them to stop, but they don't. Because she never said no to the performance. This is what happens when you confuse love with being impressive. When you let your usefulness define your worth, when your smile becomes a costume stitched from exhaustion. You perform and you forget how to stop. You dance until you're hollow, until your feet bleed, until your soul begs for silence, and still you keep going. Until one day you don't, you stop, and it feels like failure. But it isn't. It's the beginning of listening. It's the moment the shoes fall silent, and you hear your own footsteps for the first time. And then there's La Loba, the wolf woman, a desert myth retold by Jungian author Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She wanders alone, gathering the bones of dead animals. And when she has enough, she sings over them. And the skeletons rise. This is not a horror story. It's a resurrection, because La Loba doesn't fear decay. She doesn't flinch at brokenness. She gathers what the world discards. She sings life back into what has been buried. And maybe you've done that too. You've picked up the pieces of a self scattered by years of pleasing. You've gathered fragments others found inconvenient, your anger, your needs, your boundaries, and you've begun to assemble something whole. The sacred no is not a sword. It's a song. It doesn't cut to punish. It calls back the parts of you that went silent just to stay safe. Each of these myths holds the same secret. Sometimes to be reborn, you must first disappoint. You must stop dancing. You must walk through fire. You must sing over the broken bones and let them rise into a shape no one else remembers, but you do. And when they ask you, why are you different? Let your answer be simple: because I burned the life that wasn't mine. Because I stopped performing the girl in the red shoes. Because I found my voice in the desert, and it howled until I came home. This isn't selfishness. This is sacred restoration. And the fire that freed you, it never wanted to hurt you. It only wanted to show you what still lives beneath the ash. There's a kind of guilt that doesn't come from doing harm. It comes from healing. Not the guilt of malice, but the ache of transformation. A soft, persistent weight that rises the first time you choose yourself over the comfort of others. It sounds like a question. Did I go too far? Was I too harsh? Who am I if I'm not always the one who says yes? Carl Jung called it tragic guilt, the kind that emerges when we begin to individuate, when we stop molding ourselves to the demands of others and start living in alignment with our deeper truth. This isn't the guilt of wrongdoing, it's the sorrow of separation, the mourning of old selves, the discomfort of choosing integrity over adaptation. Because choosing yourself doesn't just feel new. At first it feels wrong, you speak a sacred no. The world doesn't collapse, but something inside you stirs. It's the part of you that was conditioned to believe that boundaries hurt people. That need equals shame, that peace must be earned through self-denial. That part isn't evil, it's just scared. It remembers what happened when you had needs that made others uncomfortable. It remembers the silence, the disapproval, the abandonment. And now, even when you're safe, even when you're free, the memory still pulls at your throat. But this is where the inner alchemy begins. Guilt, when faced with compassion and truth, doesn't have to dominate you, because it can transform you, because guilt is a signal. And when it rises after a boundary, it's not telling you you've failed. It's telling you you're changing. You're no longer performing for affection. You're no longer overextending to earn safety. You're no longer living from the blueprint of self-erasure. You're breaking the spell, and it's terrifying, because the guilt doesn't vanish overnight. You will feel it in the silence after the text goes unanswered. You will feel it when the invitation doesn't come. You will feel it when the relationship shifts, cools, or disappears because you stopped bending into its contours. But slowly something else begins to take its place. Peace. Not the kind that depends on other people's approval, the kind that comes from no longer abandoning yourself. This is not theory, it's somatic. It's in your nervous system, it's in your breath. The first time you say no and don't explain yourself, your hands might shake. The second time, your voice quivers less. The third time, you walk away, not out of anger, but from clarity. And clarity is quiet, it doesn't need to defend itself. It doesn't perform, it simply says, this is my line, and I will not cross it, even for love. That's when you know you've shifted. That your sacred no is no longer a reaction, it's a rhythm. A way of honoring the life you're no longer willing to compromise. Soul integrity isn't loud, it doesn't ask for applause. It's the knowing deep in your bones that you no longer betray yourself just to be understood. That you no longer disappear just to be invited. That you no longer contort just to be chosen. And maybe you still feel the guilt sometimes. Let it come, it means you're alive. Awake, becoming, but let it come as a wave, not a sentence. Let it come and pass like weather, not like truth. Because the truth is this, you didn't hurt anyone by choosing yourself. You just stopped bleeding quietly for their comfort. And now what fills that space is not bitterness but breath, not defiance but dignity, not rebellion but remembering. Remembering the you that existed before guilt took the wheel. The one who didn't apologize for having limits. The one who walked with inner weight and smiled not from compliance but from truth. That's the alchemy. That's the sacred yes underneath every sacred no. Every sacred no leads here, to the yes that doesn't tremble, to the yes that doesn't shrink, to the yes that doesn't ask, am I allowed? Carl Jung called it individuation, not becoming perfect, not becoming invincible, but becoming whole. Reclaiming the parts of you that were traded away for acceptance, melted down for harmony, silenced for survival. This isn't the loud kind of freedom, it's the still kind. It's the moment you no longer feel the need to explain your boundaries, because you know where they come from. It's the moment your nervous system settles after a no, not because you were validated, but because you stayed in integrity. It's the moment you wake up and your first thought isn't who you need to be for someone else, it's breath. And here's what no one tells you. It's not a one-time arrival, it's a return, again and again. A returning to the self who kept watch through all the roles. The self who whispered beneath the performances. The self who mourned every time you smiled while saying yes with your mouth and no with your body. And now you hear that whisper clearly. You remember who you were before your no was trained out of you. You remember the day you first betrayed yourself for peace. You remember the friend you held space for while abandoning your own. You remember the weight of "I'm fine," the mask of whatever you need, the ache of course. And in that remembering, a flame rises. Not the flame of rage, but of recognition. I don't live there anymore. I don't lose myself for love anymore. I don't say yes to what hollows me anymore. This is the final yes. Not a yes to please, a yes to protect. A yes to pace, to pleasure, to presence. A yes that echoes through your posture, your tone, your choices. A yes that walks away when it needs to. A yes that stays rooted when questioned. A yes that doesn't perform softness, but embodies strength. And maybe you're still scared sometimes. Maybe the guilt still knocks. Maybe old versions of you still reach for the mask. That's okay, they're just echoes. They're not home anymore. Home is in your breath now, in your spine, in the rhythm of your boundaries, in the kindness you give yourself when the world calls you difficult, in the peace that doesn't ask you to earn it. And when someone asks why you're different now, you won't explain. You'll smile, not the practice smile, but the real one. The one that says, because I remembered who I am. Because I belong to myself now. Because every time I said no to what dimmed me, I said yes to what lit me up. This isn't the end of the journey. This is the beginning of living it. And you'll know it's working not because life gets easier, but because you do. Because you carry yourself now. You walk in truth now. And the self you once protected in silence, she walks beside you now, visible, unapologetic, and finally home.